Imagine 150 modern fighter jets pouring into Ukraine. Not next year, not someday, but starting now. What would that do to the war? What would that do to the balance of power in Europe? And how would Russia react if Ukraine suddenly fielded one of the most advanced multi-role fighters ever built? Because this isn't fantasy. It isn't speculation. It isn't another hypothetical floating around think tank circles. This is real. Sweden and Ukraine are now discussing a deal that could involve as many as 150 Gripen fighters, one of the most ambitious air power transfers in modern history. And if even a fraction of that fleet becomes operational, the air war over Ukraine changes. Completely. Permanently. And perhaps in ways Moscow fears most. To understand why, you need to start with a simple truth that has held steady for more than 80 years. The side that controls the skies controls the war. From World War II to the Gulf War to the conflicts of the 21st century, air superiority shapes logistics, troop movement, reconnaissance, and survival itself. Right now, Ukraine fights under constant pressure, cruise missiles, drones, glide bombs, and a Russian air force that still has the advantage of reach and mass. Ukraine survives, but it survives thinly. Adding modern fighters into that equation, dozens and eventually hundreds, rewrites many of the assumptions both sides operate under. And when we talk about a fleet of this size, we're not talking about vague promises. Multiple reports confirm that Sweden and Ukraine have moved beyond exploratory conversations. They are now discussing a formal framework for a massive fighter transfer, an undertaking so large it could redefine Sweden's defense industry and Ukraine's war strategy at the same time. So let's look at the aircraft at the center of this plan, the Saab S-39 Gripen. Lightweight, highly networked, surprisingly lethal, and engineered from day one for exactly the kind of contested, high-pressure environment Ukraine faces. The modern Gripen E variant is what matters here. It uses the F414-derived engine, giving it strong acceleration and efficiency. It carries an AESA-class radar, modern avionics, and one of the most advanced electronic warfare suites in Europe. It can fire Meteor long-range air-to-air missiles, among the deadliest beyond visual range weapons available, and Iris-T for close combat. Together, these create a combination that outclasses many Russian weapons before a dogfight even begins. But what makes the Gripen special isn't just the weapons. It's the philosophy. Sweden built this fighter to survive the worst-case scenario, a war where runways are destroyed, bases are hit, and pilots must operate in chaos. Gripens can use highways as makeshift runways. They can be refueled and rearmed in minutes. And they require far fewer maintenance hours than heavyweights like the Eurofighter or the F-35. In a war where Russia targets airbases with missiles and drones, this matters more than anything. So the big question, is this plan actually real? Or is it another overhyped headline? Evidence points towards seriousness. Swedish officials have called the discussions real and ongoing. Ukrainian leaders have clearly stated their need for advanced aircraft. And Saab's production lines in Sweden and Brazil are active, with deliveries to Sweden already underway. But producing, training, and sustaining a fleet this big takes time. You don't build 150 jets overnight. You don't train dozens of pilots in a month. You don't field a new fighter without logistics, simulators, spare parts, and secure airbases. So expect staged delivery. A gradual build-up, wave after wave of capability, not a sudden arrival. But even that phased approach could transform the war. To see how, look at 5 layers of combat operations. First, air defense. Ukrainian fighters armed with Meteor missiles make Russian jets think twice before pushing deep into Ukrainian airspace. The risk jumps overnight. Every patrol becomes more dangerous. Every strike package has to consider a new threat vector. Second, offensive counter-air and suppression of enemy air defenses. Gripen's electronic warfare suite allows it to jam, deceive, and suppress Russian SAM systems far more aggressively than Ukraine's current aircraft. A single EW-equipped Gripen can turn a contested zone into a chaotic one, giving drones, artillery, and strike aircraft more freedom. Third, intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance. A modern fighter isn't just a weapon. It's a sensor node. Gripen's feeding data into Ukraine's network improve the accuracy of missiles, artillery, and loitering munitions by providing real-time targeting corrections. This isn't theory. This is doctrine. Fourth, close air support. With enough fighters, Ukraine can maintain rapid response air presence along the front. When a crisis unfolds, a Gripen can be overhead in minutes. That forces Russian commanders to change tempo, routes, and troop deployments. Fifth, deterrence. The psychological effect alone is massive. Ukrainian morale rises. Russian planning becomes more cautious. And political pressure spreads in Moscow as commanders adjust to a new reality, a reality where the skies may no longer belong to them. But let's be honest. This won't be simple. Manufacturing hundreds of fighters takes years. Training pilots takes months. Maintaining the aircraft requires a steady flow of spare parts, missiles, engines, and technicians. And airbases need hardened shelters, dispersal plans, and strong defenses to survive Russian long-range strikes. Political and legal constraints also matter. Export approvals, funding mechanisms, and Sweden's domestic priorities will shape the timeline. So the question becomes, is the plan a game changer? Yes, but only if done correctly. To maximize impact, Ukraine would need to deploy Gripen strategically, protect key cities first, shield the electrical grid, guard logistics hubs, then integrate the fighters into strike groups with drones and artillery, operate from dispersed bases, including roads and temporary strips, train non-stop with NATO advisors, and integrate secure data links to prevent Russian interference. If implemented well, even a partial Gripen force would reshape the war's air dimension. But Russia would not sit quietly. Moscow could accelerate air defense deployments, attempt sabotage operations, increase missile and drone strikes against Ukrainian runways, or pressure Sweden diplomatically. None of these actions are unlikely. All come with risks. But Russia's calculation becomes harder because Gripens are survivable. Their electronic warfare system allows them to operate in contested zones. Their road-based operability makes them difficult to target. And if Russia escalates against Swedish production sites or pressures Sweden directly, it risks pulling NATO even closer to Ukraine politically. The geopolitical ripple is enormous. If Sweden delivers Gripens at scale, its defense industry rises dramatically. Ukraine becomes the first war zone to deploy a large, modern Western fighter fleet. And European defense policy shifts toward long-term rearmament and independence. This isn't just a war story. It's an industrial story, a political story, a generational story. And if the plan succeeds, it becomes one of the defining defense moves of the decade, reshaping alliances, strategies, and deterrence across the continent. So, is 150 Gripen jets a turning point? But only if matched with logistics. Only if matched with training. Only if matched with political resolve. Because advanced fighters don't just fly. They change behavior. They reshape strategy. They influence diplomacy. And Sweden's discussions with Ukraine are already doing exactly that. This could become one of the most consequential defense stories of 2025. A moment when the war's air dimension begins to shift, and the future of European security is rewritten in real time.